Hey, welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Chuong.
And we talk about all things Golden State Warriors from an old school fan's perspective, because if you didn't love them at their worst, you don't deserve them at their best.
Not at all.
I think both of us, we've been fans, Warriors fans, since, for maybe about 30-ish years,
30
right?
years, yeah, which tells you how old we are.
Mine might be like a little bit more, but, debatable.
You are older than me too, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not by much.
Harumph.
Not much. But you look good for your age, man. You're like, you could easily pass for like 38, 39. Easily, dude.
Yeah. All right, you silver fox. But during that span, there's been some really bad teams, some bright spots. But one thing that has been relatively consistent is that the Warriors have always had some pretty good two guards, some pretty good shooting guards,
Yep.
So I'm wondering, how would you rank those guys? Who do we have here? We got Mitch Richmond.
We got Mitch Richmond. We have Spree. We have Jay Rich. And we have Klay Thompson, I would say, over the last 30 years. Now, I say that with the caveat that we are not including Monta Ellis in this discussion, possibly because I think that he merits his own podcast episode. How about that?
Yes, he does. I'm still trying to find this one photo I saw on ESPN a few years ago where I think he was under the basket and he maybe had his jersey pulled, and the dude had the Golden State Warriors logo tattooed like significantly on his back, on his back shoulder somewhere.
Wow.
And like the one with the bridge, and I was like, wow. And then I think the next season they traded him, but it's okay.
No, he was always a fan favorite. I loved Monta when he was on the team. But yeah, like I said, we can talk about him in a separate podcast. He deserves a separate podcast because we have a lot of love for Monta. But to answer your question, I would say probably those four that we talked about: Spree, Mitch, Klay, and Jay Rich would be the shooting guards over the last 30 years. Yeah, we can talk. Let's talk about it. Like, how would you rank them? Like, what are your memories of them? I don't know. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Also, we're skipping John Starks.
He might also deserve his own episode too, huh? Or actually, no. Should we tell the audience like he's going to be a surprise guest in the future?
Sure, man. I guess one of us has to work on his John Starks impression.
You need to stuff like cotton balls in your cheeks so that because he always had he seemed very mealy mouthed, like he always had something in his mouth when he was talking.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember that it was Don Nelson that pulled John Starks out of the CBA and gave him his first shot in the NBA?
That's right.
And then he ends up in New York, and the New York hype machine takes a hold of him, and they win a few games, and he becomes a living legend. He gets traded to the Warriors, and he becomes who he is.
I would add while he's in New York, he won a few games. He also missed a few very critical free throws too, right?
Yes.
But yeah, love for John Starks too. We say it all in jest. So Jay Rich, Klay, Mitch, Sprewell.
Yeah.
Pretty solid list right there.
All right, I'm just gonna say it right here. I think Mitch Richmond was overall the best player out of all of them.
Wow, we're gonna like really disagree then.
Yeah. Yep. We just might.
Tell me more about this, because Mitch Richmond, he really only played upwards of 2.5 seasons with the Warriors before he was traded.
Yes.
So.
And I will admit my inherent bias. Those are very formative years of my Warriors fandom, the Run TMC years.
That's when you fell in love with the team.
A little bit before, but that's when I was like, "Oh man, they're actually fun to watch."
So this might sound like a tangent, but what you just said reminded me of something I heard from Lorne Michaels, the producer and creator of Saturday Night Live. He said that usually when people talk about, people always rank like who the best cast was. Oh, it was Will Ferrell, it was Dana Carvey's cast, Kristen Wiig or whatever, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey.
Mm-hmm.
He said that what he noticed, because people say that to him all the time, I guess, right? Which I
Mm-hmm.
find very disturbing, because why would you say that to Lorne Michaels? Usually it's the cast that the person saw when they were like in middle school or high school is their
Right.
favorite cast, because
Right.
that's when they were like defining themselves from a humor standpoint, developing their sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they were getting into the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you said Mitch Richmond. I'm not saying you said that he's the best, that he's your favorite, but you're saying he's the best of the four. But I guess that doesn't really surprise me, because that's when you watched Mitch Richmond when you fell in love with the Warriors, right?
That's when I became a fan of the Warriors during the Sleepy Floyd years, but that's when I was like, wow, these guys are actually fun to watch, and they're kind of on the national stage in the playoffs for the first time in a while. Um, but I agree, like the Lorne Michaels thing. I noticed at a certain point that like older folks, they dressed in the decade that was like their best decade. I remember I worked with this woman in the early aughts who dressed like she was in the 70s. And I was like, oh man, she must have really liked the 70s.
Oh, really? What was she wearing?
Her hairstyle was very 70s, and not hip 70s, like, kind of middle-aged woman 70s, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of those long flower print skirts and, kind of weird collars and stuff like that. But that makes sense what Lorne Michael says, and that's what I'm fully admitting. But just the thing about Mitch Richmond to me was that even though like he was only on the team for, what'd you say, 2.5 seasons,
88 to
and
91, right?
yeah, I think that for me, and again, like if there's any kind of way we're weighting this, I'm not really weighing it on like, oh well, he only spent 2.5 years, whereas like Clay's been on the team for what, 6-7 years. But he was just an all around, I think, like better player. He could shoot pretty well.
Better than who? How was Mitch Richmond better? What was he better at versus Sprewell versus Klay Thompson versus Jay Rich?
He could handle, he could play D, he could post up, he could shoot mid range. And for early 90s, people didn't shoot the three as often, but I feel like he could pop it every now and then. Um, yeah, and I felt like, even when he played Jordan, he played him well. And Mitch Richmond played at a time when like the two guard position was coming into its own as like the glamour position, and it was like a premium spot on the court. So I'm not saying it's a runaway.
That's interesting that you said that he was a better defender than Sprewell. I mean, if you're looking at it from a statistical standpoint, right? Richmond played 234 games for the Warriors. Sprewell played 400 games for the Warriors. In those games, Sprewell in 400 games average. If we're looking at just like the basic defensive statistics, right?
Right.
We're not getting to advanced statistics, just basic statistics. So rebounds, steals, blocks, right? Sprewell averaged 1.7 steals versus Mitch Richmond's 1.3. Sprewell averaged 0.7 blocks versus Mitch Richmond's 0.3 blocks. And Sprewell averaged 4.3 rebounds versus Mitch Richmond's 5.5. So statistically, Mitch Richmond only out-rebounded Sprewell. The other two categories, Sprewell.
Yeah. Hey man, Sprewell was awesome when he was with the Warriors before he choked PJ. So like like I said, it's not a runaway.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah.
They're both really good defenders at their position. Would you say that Mitch Richmond was a better one-on-one defender, or was his strength as a system defender, like help defender, or both? Because Sprewell, that was his strength. He was a very, very tenacious one-on-one defender.
Those Run TMC teams didn't play defense, actually. Anyways,
not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
But and I also remember like when Mitch was on the Kings, he would always kill the Warriors, man.
Yes, he did. I remember.
He would like the Kings were god awful, but he would just turn it up and just bully ball them. And as he got older, and he's always like a strong guy, he would just destroy the Warriors. He would just beat them up and pretty much just show them what kind of big mistake that they made.
I know we just talked about Jimmy Butler screaming at his teammates and saying how like they can't win without him. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
wondering if Mitch Richmond did the same thing to the Warriors when he was playing them against the Kings, as with the Kings.
I don't know if that was his style, but he would have been well within his rights to do that.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. You brought that up. The bully ball. Like he's a pretty stocky guy at shooting guard, right? Like if we're comparing him with Sprewell, Sprewell was long, lanky, very athletic, right? Like super
Yeah,
athletic.
I think Sprewell was like a track and
He
field
was,
guy.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
memory. Yeah, he was. But yeah, Mitch Richmond. It's poor Mitch Richmond, man. If he could have just made it to good teams uh, for his career, he only played he played um let's see, he played 14 seasons and he was only in the playoffs for 4 seasons.
When he was traded, I believe, to the Bullets. I don't know if they were the Wizards yet. For I think that was the Weber deal, right? Like all of a sudden,
98,
he
99.
yeah, he was on a trash Kings franchise for so long. Then he went to the Bullets and they were trash again, right? So like he kept
Yeah.
getting passed around, and I mean whatever. Like I don't really remember it too well, but in the sense that if they couldn't build a team around him anywhere, or if those franchises were just, I mean, the Kings were the Kings at that point, and the Bullets were the Bullets, so
Yeah.
he uh, didn't have very charmed NBA existence in that respect. But he,
I find that very interesting. I don't have the same attachment that you have to Mitch Richmond. Obviously, I started watching the Warriors during Run TMC, but for me, my nostalgic shooting guard is always going to be Sprewell,
mm-hmm,
right? That's when I really started gravitating towards the team.
mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I had like, what was the poster? I had a poster of him doing his classic like
The
double
landlord.
two handed dunk. No, it was like Oaktown Jam, I think was
Okay,
the poster.
yeah,
I had one of those in high school. From a nostalgic standpoint, I will always like have so much love for Sprewell just because of what he helped me he helped connect me, but him as a player, him being as good as he was, even the fallout with PJ Carlesimo, like he's the one who connected me to the team, so I'll always be grateful for that. And quite frankly, I just loved his game. He
yep.
was just so aggressive, so angry. There's a game during the 93-94 season, early odds. Tim Hardaway was injured. Chris Mullin was playing with him. And this was Weber's rookie year. They were playing the Hawks, and they drew up. They were down 2. They were playing in Atlanta, and they drew up a play where Chris Mullin was inbounding the ball. He inbounded to the baseline, to Sprewell baseline, hits a 3, nails it. Right, they win. The Warriors win the game,
Mm-hmm.
and all the Warriors. The Warriors bench, they run onto the court. Everyone's super excited. They're all trying to run towards Sprewell, but Sprewell is running towards the tunnel to leave the court,
Mm-hmm.
and the entire time his face is not one of joy, it's of like pure vitriol and anger, right? He just hit the winning shot, but he was still so angry,
Yeah.
and he's just yelling at the Atlanta fans, yelling at everyone, yelling at, just projecting a lot of like weird intensity in the ether, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his teammates want to celebrate with him, but he's just like pushing them off.
Mm-hmm.
He's still running towards the tunnel.
Yeah.
I still remember that, and I remember watching the game with my dad, and my dad said, "Hey, why is he so angry?" And I don't know. I don't know why, but I loved it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Statistically, if we look at statistics too, like his line as a Warrior was pretty impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Close to 5 assists a game, 20 points a game. He was never a great 3-point shooter, but he could make it. He shot 33%, right? And
Yeah.
again, like I said, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, close to a block a game.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty stellar line, I would say.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really, really, really good line. I would say overall, out of the 4, statistically, you could make the argument that he was overall the best, right?
Yeah.
But another thing I look at is also, the things that maybe don't matter as much, but are more like related to like their to how lauded they are in those seasons. So what I'm thinking of is, how many All-Star appearances do they have, right?
Right.
If we're looking at these four, Sprewell had three as a Warrior, and if you think about him managing to get three All-Star appearances during like the aughts of the Warriors being completely terrible in the 90s, like that's actually pretty impressive, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because they were not winning a lot of games. They were winning like 17 to 20 games a season. So for him to actually make the All-Star was
I
it's
loved
impressive.
Sprewell, man. Like I forgot who else was on his Alabama team besides Robert Ory, but he was like the third best player on his team. I mean, he was also around during my formative years, and I was in high school when he was on the team, and when he would put his when he would write Chris Webber's number 4 or something uh, on his shoes. I had a high school teammate who left the team. It really shows you how these players kind of like influence younger folks, because we also had a lot of people who were not listening to the coaches. And one of my best friends, he got I forgot if he got kicked off the team or quit or whatever, but I remember I showed up the next game. I'd put his initials and his number on my black shoes, on my black basketball shoes, and my coaches didn't like it too much. So that was hugely influential in my life. But yeah, no, watching Spree like kind of go from like this mild mannered, quiet, like lucky to be here, like Don Nelson liked him, so he drafted him, and then turning into like this menace on the court, just like
Angry, malcontent.
Yeah, he was clutch. He had the balls to shoot, and it probably also helped that during Weber's rookie year, Hardaway was out, because it became about those two guys bonding, Sprewell and Weber, and
well, you could argue that, but partially why he was probably like part of the reason why he was so angry like later on during his tenure, besides the losing, like he had one season with his best friend gets traded, and in fact was like a franchise player.
That was his formative year.
Yeah, that was that was the year. Yeah, we reference this all the time, but he was the first shooting guard to take the all NBA first team spot from Jordan, because that was the year Jordan had retired, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
And it was just weird seeing like somebody on the Warriors in the kind of nationwide NBA conversation. But yeah, I mean, early on, like I know that when Sprewell went to the Knicks, he kept scoring, but he just became one of those guys. I feel like he got a little lazy, just became like a scorer, and But during his span on the Warriors, man, that guy was super athletic.
He was a killer. Even though, despite my fondness for Sprewell, as one of my favorite Warriors of all time, probably, he's still not. I don't think he was the best shooting guard.
You're listening to the Oakland Warriors podcast. Do you know Oakland Warriors is a website too? OAKLANDWarriors.com offers a collection of Warriors t-shirts that are comfy, classy, and cool. Fit for a real Warriors fan like you. Forget basic tees and boring designs. With Oakland Warriors, you can show your team pride with those in the know. So come celebrate the new Death lineup with Steph, Klay, Draymond, KD, and Boogie. Rep the Hamptons 5 and show some love for China Klay. I have a shirt from OaklandWarriors.com. It's comfy and soft, and it reps the Dubs in a low-key but fun way. Don't believe me? Check out OaklandWarriors.com and use the code podcast at checkout for a 10% discount.
So let's move on chronologically then.
What are your thoughts on J. Rich?
Jason Richardson, when he was drafted, I was really happy, because that was, for the first time in a long time, the Warriors had an athletic player. Everybody else they'd had and they drafted was not like kind of jump out of the gym type guy. And I thought he was good. Obviously, the dunk contest, woo woo.
Two dunk contests.
But I think he was more of a complimentary player, and I his 3-point shot got better, and I know he shot a ton of those, and he was huge on the We Believe team. But he was like maybe the third best player on the We Believe team.
I'm gonna read you something. You
Sure.
You ready?
Yep.
You sitting down?
Yeah.
It's not that exciting actually. So his penultimate year with the Warriors, the year actually he got injured, right? Because it was the year before We Believe.
Okay.
He got injured with like 7 games left in the season. Tragic. He shot 45% from the field, 38% from 3, making 2 threes a game. He shot his efficient field goal percentage was 50%. He averaged 6 rebounds a game, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, and half a block a game. And do you know how many points he scored? 23.2 points a game.
Yeah,
that was his dude. I didn't even realize that he had that kind of season until I looked at his stats on Basketball Reference. Shout out Basketball Reference.
Mm-hmm.
And the year before, he averaged 22 points a game. But dude, the line I just read to you from the 2005 to 6 season, that's an all-star. That's an all-star line right there.
What was his shooting percentage?
Shooting percentage, he shot 45 from the field,
Wow.
38% from 3.
Yeah,
38%.
That's pretty good. I mean,
that's pretty good, right? I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then he got injured.
Yeah.
Then he got injured and he came back too early during We Believe.
Yeah.
And I don't think his career ever recovered.
Yeah. And then when he was on the We Believe team, he wasn't like the star or the main guy on that team.
No, I remember there was a breakaway dunk that he had, and classic Jay Rich would he would have just done this like killer wind up windmill, like one-handed windmill dunk, right? Yeah. And he got up and he couldn't get high enough, so his windmill, usually his windmills he would just bring it all the way down to his thigh, right? Mm-hmm. He just brought it down to like his shoulder. Yeah. So he kind of just like it looked like he just kind of waved the ball in the air a little bit, and then he like dunked it.
It's just
and then, so you knew like he wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
And he talked about that, like he came back because he felt like the team needed him, and they did.
Yeah.
For that season, but he came back too early.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize he had such a good season. Maybe that was the year that I wasn't watching too much Warriors basketball. But yeah, I mean, I know he was on a trash team when he did that, and I was gonna say like that's why I asked the shooting percentage again because I missed it. At least he shot well, right? Like he wasn't like just shooting like 35%, jacking up shots on a mediocre team. But wow. Yeah, I mean, I think he's, for a lot of people who grew up with the We Believe team, he's a huge sentimental fan favorite.
Yes, absolutely.
And especially since he got so shafted with like the Brendan Wright trade.
Brendan Wright, that's right, because Charlotte drafted Brendan Wright and traded him to the Warriors for Jay Rich.
Yeah, because I guess the one thing the Warriors were missing from the We Believe team was like a tall, skinny guy from North Carolina. Like that's exactly what they did not need.
They were pretty successful at like drafting or acquiring the wrong guy from North Carolina during that run, right? Antoine Jameson versus Vince Carter. Yeah.
Yep. That was oh god, that's a whole nother episode.
Brendan Wright, he just seemed like he never talked. He seemed like he was a mute, like I don't on the court. He just had these like this he just had really dead eyes. It seemed. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but not like the most animated guy.
Yeah, I don't think I know what his voice sounds like, but props to him for still being in the league and floating around. And I don't think he plays that often, but I know I've heard his name like tossed about as like an add-on in trades over the past several years. So
he last played for the Rockets.
That's putting them over the top.
Yeah. Oh, he played for the Rockets last year.
Wow. Was he on the bench during the playoffs?
Oh, that's right, because he was on Memphis. I remember he was on those really good Dallas teams. I think he won a championship with Dallas, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he
Yeah,
had a
he's on the really good
serviceable
Dallas teams.
career. Yeah.
So with respect to Sprewell, Mitch Richmond, and Jay Rich, I think we can both agree that Jay Rich would be third, right?
In the in that
In that in the within those comparing to the within those three. But what about Klay Thompson? The young kid, the young guy, our most recent shooting guard, our prized shooting guard. Tell me your thoughts about him.
Man, I love Klay Thompson. He's maybe one of my 5 favorite Warriors players. You know, he has the 3 titles. He has the 3-point stroke that'll put him in the Hall of Fame.
42%. Clay's career 3-point percentage is 42%.
Wow.
And he shoots about 3. He makes about three threes a game.
Mitch Richmond's in the Hall of Fame, right?
I feel like they let the requirements for the Hall of Fame of I think Dino Raja just came in, was in the most recent class, right, for 2018.
Yeah.
I'm just like yes, it's widely known that the Basketball Hall of Fame is like there's less scrutiny to get in versus like the NFL or the I think baseball is like the hardest one, right?
Yeah, I guess so, according to Pete Rose.
Yeah, he's never gonna get it. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame.
Well, regardless, like
that's actually no, you're right. 2014.
I mean, it's tough because like the thing is, Klay has always been he's never been like the guy on his team, and
sure. Never needed to be.
Yeah, and I would love to see what he can do, especially at this point. He's had the greatest like career arc, obviously, with the titles and the winning and all that jazz. But on ability, on all around skills, putting him up against like Mitch and Sprewell, like at their best, it's a tough call for me. What do you think? Are you gonna pull some stats out of the sky?
Not like I've been pulling stats out like throughout this conversation, but since you mentioned it, 4 All-Star appearances, 5 seasons of playing in the playoffs, 3 championships, and I mentioned the 3-point shooting percentage, 42%. The thing is, like between these 4, he averaged 19 points a game, right? Which is close to Sprewell's 20, which is close to Mitch's 22.7, so 23 points a game. But he's done that without being the first option, right? First scoring option. I would say Mitch and Chris Mullin, they were 1A and 1B scoring options, right? I would say Sprewell was definitely the number 1 scoring option on his teams. Jay Rich was probably 1A, 1B when Gilbert Arenas is around, and then it actually was 1 for a couple seasons, right? Especially the season he averaged 24 points a game. So I'm just curious what if Klay was on a team where he had to be the number 1 option, and he played exactly the same game where he had a point guard who didn't shoot as much, set everything up, he was able to pick his spots and just jack up jump shots, I think he could easily average 25 to 27 points a game.
Right.
Like without even exerting like a lot more effort, because although he can create his own shot, a lot of that comes from him being 6'7" and being long and just being able to get his jump shot off pretty much wherever he wants. Right. So it's hard, right? Like you said, he's never been the primary option, but the fact that he is able to adapt to this team with Steph Curry, who is an even better shooter than him, and support them in ways that they actually didn't expect going into him being drafted, right? On the defensive end, him having an incredible amount of basketball IQ, and being able to fit in with the defensive schemes that they set up for the team, and for him to succeed so much as a defensive player. And I did not look at the statistic, but I wanted to see how many all NBA defense teams he's made, right?
Who, Klay?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Pretty sure it's 0.
Sure he's made, well, is it 0?
Unless it was last season.
I think you might be right. I think he's the best defender out of all 4.
Really?
And I think he's the best shooter out of all 4.
Agreed.
By far, right? And granted, the teams our current team is stacked, but he's won the most championships. So I kind of have to say Klay is my number 1 on this list.
Interesting. Interesting. Front runner.
Maybe I'm a front runner. Maybe I am, but you know what? I don't care because I think like I said, if the Warriors were if Steph wasn't around and maybe Draymond wasn't around, and the Warriors had the point guard was like I don't know Jeff Teague or something, right? I don't see how Klay wouldn't be able to average more than like less than like 25 points a game.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
as a number one option.
Yeah.
Because think about it. He's on this list as the number 2, number 3, number 4 option, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny, right? Because I think like when I think of Klay, I mean, when I watch him play, that guy is he's kind of in his own zen right now because he's 28, he'll be 29 maybe during the season, and he's getting to that point of his prime where like his confidence, his athleticism, and his kind of acumen for the game all like reach like the same point, their highest altogether. And so he knows what he does, and he does it so well. When I think back to maybe his rookie year, and then I think back to Jason Richardson's rookie year, Mitch Richmond's rookie year, Sprewell's rookie year, Klay obviously started with Sprewell had low expectations, but he kind of blew those up already in his rookie season. But Klay was like, okay, I was like, cool. They just drafted like they just drafted Trajan Langdon, right? But like as their years go by, like Klay's constantly improved, and he's gotten better and better and better. Whereas like Mitch Richmond continued to be solid. His teams were never that good. Sprewell continued to get better, but then all of a sudden he just became Sprewell. Yeah. Some guy who was just there for, needs to feed his family and everything. Mm-hmm. And Richardson, like you said, he had that injury, and once he got traded to Phoenix. Wait, was it Phoenix?
Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte, right.
Right.
Yeah, once he got traded to Charlotte.
He had a good season. He averaged 20 points again after that when he
season. But then
for a terrible team.
Although Klay is still one of my top 5 favorites, taking all these what ifs and caveats and whatnot into account, I still think Mitch Richmond was probably the best all around player out of all of them.
Wow, I don't think that's a terribly controversial choice. If you said J Rich, I would have some strong reservations, but yeah, Mitch Richmond in the 2.5 seasons he played for the Warriors was amazing.
I mean, I'll be honest, like this is a tougher decision than I thought it would be. It's funny too, because when I think about Klay Thompson and how good he is, well, to me, he's better than Reggie Miller,
Yeah.
Because when Reggie Miller came out of UCLA, he was okay. It wasn't until, his playoff matches against the Knicks and Spike Lee that he became a legend. And, and scoring 8 points in like 4 seconds or whatever, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But Klay did some things too in the playoffs, and Klay's won titles, and Klay plays defense, and Klay, I don't know the percentages, but like if you can't tell me by the eye test that Reggie Miller is a better shooter. You know what I mean? So it's like that's a whole nother conversation, because I actually think he's better than Reggie Miller. So
yeah. No, I agree. This was. Leaving J Rich out of the equation, I feel like between Klay, Mitch, and Spree, it's pretty tough. It's a tough call, and you really can't go wrong with any 3 of them. But I just think it's interesting how personality-wise they're all so different too, right?
Yeah.
It would be easy if we're ranking the most chill bro-ish shooting guard of all time, because that would be Klay by a mile, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the most chill bro like NBA player I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
by far.
Yep. He's just like, I can't believe I'm here. This is awesome. I'm gonna work really hard to stay here, and I'm just gonna do me.
He seems very authentic, I think, right, and very like present.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about him, having never met him before, he just strikes me as that kind of person.
I don't know. Do you think he's better than Reggie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
sure.
so yeah, that's not a controversial
He's a
statement.
much better defender than Reggie ever was.
I think maybe people would jump on board more now, especially after like a few titles. But even after the first title, I thought like, well, what was Reggie really good at? You know, he was a good
Yeah.
shooter, and he was clutch
He was clutch.
in
And he was
memorable
menacing,
moments.
and he didn't really care about.
Yeah,
He was a fucking asshole. Like,
I mean
on the court.
that's another huge difference. Like Klay is the opposite of Reggie in terms of talking. You know what I mean? So
He doesn't talk at all, but he's still a killer. Like he,
Yeah.
and that OKC game where he just pulled. What was it? How many
11.
he scored?
He had 11 threes.
It's just like, man, he saved the season.
Yeah,
And all the other players were shooting like crap. Everyone was playing like shit, and he just saved the season. It was amazing.
yeah.
He's smart. He always, like, people say this about Kevin Durant. Like, it seems like he always makes the right basketball play, but I feel the same way about Klay.
If you had like a tournament with these four guys playing 1-on-1,
Ooh, I like this.
like, I think it's I go Mitch or Spree, to be honest.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah. I do, because I think they both could do a lot more things than Klay, like putting the ball on the floor in terms of like one-on-one moves, like just pure first step, getting past the guy to the rack. Klay would like win on if he's shooting a bunch of threes, or a lot of like kind of like a lot of his game reminds me of Chris Mullin, where he would do like the kind of, you know, pump fakes and just smart playing. And to me, you know, Mitch and Spree kind of going at it like two different guys who could do a lot of different things.
Yeah. So, I'm just thinking how like Klay would match up against Mitch Richmond, because he has like probably 3 inches on him.
Well, I think Mitch Richmond was listed at 6'5".
6'5", but he's wide, right? Wide and strong, very
Yeah.
strong. And Sprewell was 6'5", but wiry and long. So we're just gonna assume that Jay Rich would not do very well in this tournament, right? We're not even gonna really discuss like how he would perform.
I think he'd beat both Monta and John Starks.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Monte's, I mean, if we're talking about Monta, was like 6'2", 6'3", right? So
Yeah.
he would have a tough time. Yeah, Klay, Mitch, Spree. I just feel like Klay's ability to get a shot off on anyone at any time is like, it's a vastly important skill to have when you're playing 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Because if you couple that with the fact that he can make, like, in a game like that 50% of his shots, he might like give Mitch and Spree more clearance, and like as far as like them being able to get to the hole, right? They might be able to score on him, but I feel like Klay would just jack shots on them, man.
Yeah.
Like at any, like the pump fakes, the move, like just being able to get that shot off, like he's perfected that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Like he doesn't shoot. He doesn't have a trigger. Like, sorry to cut you off, but just to finish my point. Like he doesn't have a quick shot, like quick release, like Steph. He has he does have a quick release, but he's able to create that space,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
to make those shots. And I feel like he could do it on Mitch and Spree.
Yeah.
Although that's not considering that, you know, Sprewell might get really pissed off and like starts swinging at him or something, you know. So
yeah, I think, I mean, Klay is just a really unique player. He had a unique skill that could flourish in this unique offense on this unique team. You know what I mean?
He's got a unique face. He looks like he looks like an Easter Island statue.
That's what they used to say about Scottie Pippen too.
That is a good one, yeah.
So Klay on this team is a better fit than like Mitch Richmond, Sprewell, or Jason Richardson. You know?
Yeah, I would say Mitch would be the second best fit.
Yeah,
on this team.
Sprewell, for a lot of reasons, would not be a good fit.
He would not be a great fit. He would not be a great fit. You know what though? Like he ended up being like, he is. You know how beloved he is by Knicks fans? They love him.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I joke, but like we both said, like we loved him when he was on the Warriors. He's a loyal guy, right? Like that's his thing. Like and he plays hard and he has attitude, and who wouldn't love that on their team? If he didn't leave the Warriors, like, Warriors fans would have loved him continuously,
That we can agree on. So what's your final ranking then?
Final ranking is very close. Mitch Richmond, Klay Thompson, Latrell Sprewell, and Jason Richardson.
I go.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's it seems like what you were getting to. I am Sprewell. Oh, sorry, no. I'm Klay, Sprewell, Mitch, J. Rich. So the one thing that we can agree on is J. Rich's. No disrespect to J. Rich, we love you.
No, I love Jason Richardson, man. That guy was
2-time dunk champion, Jason Richardson.
We hear whenever Steph talks about, like, yeah, I've been here the longest. I'm the only one that remembers the bad years. I mean, that's what Jason Richardson was going through, right? Like, when he got traded, I think he took out like a page-long ad in some kind of local paper thanking the fans. And I was like, oh, wow, he has that connection to the fan base. That's great. So,
you know what? We've talked about Mitch Richmond being on shit teams, but thank God he got a championship with the Lakers, right?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, like, I guess people, hey, if you have to switch teams to get a title, you might as well do it when you're like hella old.
Yep.
Like that's what people will forgive and accept. But yeah, no, good for him. And he's and he works with Chris Mullin, right, over at St. John's.
St. John's. Last I heard, yeah, he does work for Chris Mullin, who I'm curious how he is as a coach, but that's probably for another conversation.
All right, that wraps up another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. I'm Patrick.
I'm Chuong.
Thanks.
Peace.
Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time, and go Dubs.